Hello, good evening and welcome to the next round of the CRS Touring Car League. We're here at Imola for the next race. It's going to be round 7 and 8 of a hotly contested battle. There's going to be 16 rounds of this fantastic league, and we're here today, like I say, at sunny Imola. It's looking sunny at the moment on the qualifying runs at the moment, but there is expected rain for the feature race. So that could be interesting with a 25 lap race coming your way for the feature race. However, let's first take a look at the touring car standings at current. Banzlowski is leading by a big 87 points. It's a pretty big lead, but Sausage Miyagi is closing in on 83. Big Tham is the biggest story though, to have come in the lead a little bit late and already third with 65 points. Doherty James is with 60, and then you've got GRG Jacob and Redshift 80. Rubbernecker 32, Shorzy, That Bag Z4, Dizzy, Vinch, and then Fly to Stars and Maskong round out your championship table there. So it's looking like it's going to be tasty. Big Tham is the biggest story. We're going to go over to Baseface, DC Gunner, and Jimmy B in the pits for some commentary for you this evening.
Okay, good evening ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to you all here at the CRS Touring Cars. We're here for rounds 7 and 8 of the CRS Touring Car League Tier 1. Just a little introduction to CRS. Of course, we are an all-inclusive, family-friendly Xbox Project Cars 2 league. We run several leagues, including GT5s. We run track day events over the weekend. We run vintage GP time attack events. We have our brand new 488 challenge, our Ferrari 488 challenge, open to anyone with a C license or above. We run Indy cars on a Saturday night, and of course our featured events for this season, we're running an 8 hours of Spa and a 24 hours of Le Mans for in aid of St John's Ambulance this evening. Sorry, not this evening. We're running them in a couple of weeks' time, just to try and raise a little bit of money for St John's Ambulance. So, of course, coming back to joining me in the commentary box this evening, we have our dear friend Jimmy B, who will be down in the pits reporting for us. Say hello, Jimmy.
Hello, how you doing?
Any news so far from the pits? Anything to report? I hear we've had a couple of disconnection issues and stuff like that. Is everybody back into the lobby?
It seems so. Might be one person missing at the moment, but it's only practice, so hopefully this all gets sorted out by qualifying the race, and we should have a pretty dramaless event.
That's good stuff. That's great news. I'm sure we'll get it all sorted out by the time we get into qualifying. And of course, joining me in the commentary booth, we have the fantastic DC Gunner, who's a star of our IndyCar League for the Saturday night. Say hi, DC Gunner.
Hello there.
So just watching on, we're just watching Big Tham. That's Tham, ladies and gentlemen, just backing the car through the corners and making his way down to the left-hand hairpin. So Big Tham at the moment, the leader on the scoreboards. Just quitting back to the pits there, he's running a 1:52.7. So ladies and gentlemen, expect some more 52s in the qualifying. The guy's just getting up to speed right now. Anything to report so far, DC Gunner, on the practice? Anything you've particularly spotted?
Nothing at the moment, but it seems the Renaults seem to be getting a bigger advantage over the Beamers at the moment. Don't know if that's down to the better tune or just a few better drivers in the car, but I'm just noticing that at the moment.
Okay, I'm also noticing that there's some different fuel loads going on. The top guys are actually now doing what I'd call a race run, where they fill the car up with sort of 50 litres of fuel and just running until they sort of get bored, or they're just monitoring their tyre wear and actually just having practice for the race. Now that they've put in a good banker lap and they sort of know how the car feels under qualifying, they'll just use this remainder of the practice session to prepare for the race.
Excellent. So that's some good information there from Jimmy down in the pits. So at the moment we're currently watching Banzlowski as he makes his way to start what is probably his final lap for practice, and of course running into the heavily modified Tamburello chicane as he makes his way around. Of course, this used to be a very fast, very infamous, very fast left-hand corner. It was modified in the late 90s, I believe, or immediately after the 94 Grand Prix, which of course sadly saw the deaths of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger. And as we now go to Fly to the Stars as he makes his way down to the bottom of the course and makes his run around. Fly to the Stars running on a 1:54.4 at the moment, so he's about a second and a half off, 1.7 seconds, so a little bit of time to make up.
Yeah,
Also
also looks
running
like
with a
he's
bit of
got a
damage
little
on
bit of
that back
damage
end.
on the rear end. Yeah,
Maybe
it's a
maybe
little
had
bit of bumper
an incident.
damage.
So back to the pits.
Yeah, looks like
for
he's
Fly
in
to the
his
Stars.
pits
I
to
believe
fix that.
that's the checkered flag, ladies and gentlemen,
That's
for the practice session. So we should see the cars just finish off their final laps and make their way back to the pits for the start of qualifying. And of course, we'll bring you the entire of qualifying in its. We'll bring you the entire of qualifying, so you'll not miss a thing.
Yeah, do I just watch it on Twitch now? Yeah, I can do. Cool.
Alright, I'm just getting our last driver in.
So there we go.
You have
We
to wait
watched
a couple
Calm
of
Big Tam as he
seconds,
comes round Ravazza 2, makes his way down to the pit straight. So he's currently on a 1:52.7. Let's see if he makes an improvement on his final lap.
Celebratory flashing lights.
So no improvement there for anybody at the moment. Mascong, the final car to... oh no, sorry, Redshift is currently on a flying lap, just snuck in there. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of the practice session. So at the moment, Calm Big Tam on a 1:52.7. So quite a quick lap from Big Tam there, but we're not entirely sure whether some of the other competitors are running on race fuel at the moment to Calm Big Tam
it looks
from
like
Banzlowski, Mascong, Sausage Miyagi, Fly to the Stars, Redshift, Z4, Shorzy, Dizzy and Doherty James. So Dizzy and Doherty James not managing to set a lap time in that practice session, but obviously saving the car for the qualifying session.
It looks like some of the Beamers do have some potential, as Metcalf's getting just under a second behind Big Tam. Looks like they could have a couple of. Looks like they could put a couple of seconds up. Maybe take a second or a first place in the race or qualifying.
Yeah, I mean it's nip and tuck between the first three or four competitors there, less than just over a second between the first four, so it's nip and tuck at the moment. I mean, in terms of the entire field, there's only 2.5 seconds between all of them, so I think there's going to be quite a close race between the three of them. So just to fill you in, guys, of course you are watching the CRS Racing League Touring Car Tier 1. This is our fastest drivers in the league running touring cars this evening. This is all, of course, decided by a time trial before the season starts. But just to run you through some of the other things we run here at CRS. So we run our GT5 newcomers on a Monday night, which means that you can jump in a lobby with some of these guys. So some of these guys are admins for our Discord community, of which the link for the Discord is in the bio for our CRS Twitch page. So the GT5 newcomers is 3 15-minute sessions running at different tracks, and it is literally just to kind of learn your way around the cars, learn a little bit of racecraft, and just give some of our more experienced members a chance to kind of pass on a bit of knowledge to some of our newer members. Of course, our track day events run on a Saturday and Sunday with our vintage track day, so running some older cars, so vintage Formula 1 cars and some of the vintage GT cars that run, so anything from kind of old Mercedes right the way through to Group C cars running at tracks. So it's a great way of kind of learning learning your way around tracks that some of you may not necessarily go to. So for example, we ran a track day, a modern track day this afternoon at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, which of course is a very popular track, but obviously a bit of a beast to try and tackle during a race. So moving on to Tuesday nights, we have our time attack events, where we will organise a particular car and a particular track, and there will be a certain amount of practice, and everybody goes out one at a time to set the fastest lap they possibly can. It's quite an intense challenge, and it's quite a fun way of learning your way around tracks. So moving on to our 8 hours of Spa and of course our 24 hours of Le Mans. I believe the sign up is now closed for that, but of course you can watch on our Twitch channel. We will be streaming the entire event live, with of course the events being run in aid of St John's Ambulance. It's obviously not an inconsiderable feat to of course it's not an inconsiderable feat to run for 24 hours at a time. Of course, the drivers organising into teams of 4 and running in 3-hour stints. And I believe we are now back. DC Gunner, are we back with qualifying now?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just watching Shorzy as he makes his way out the pits to start his qualifying lap. So quite a few of the field all making their way out of the pits and making their way down to, of course, start their first warm-up laps. So quite a few cars out on track at the moment. We are watching them all just go round to the start their qualifying laps, and all, of course, just exiting the pits. A big old snake of cars making their way down to the bottom of the course. DC Gunner, do you reckon that there'll be some issues with people on track not being able to find clear air?
There might be a problem through some of the corners, especially if the person behind is going to be a few tenths quicker in a couple of laps. They might catch up and find it difficult to pass, because they're all going to be pushing for fastest lap to get up on pole and eventually win the race.
Yeah, so of course they are going to benefit from a little bit of a tow down the straights, but it's all about running into the corners and just making sure that you're kind of not holding anybody up, or that you're not being held up, in fact, by some of the other drivers on track. So Banzlowski, and I believe that is Big Tam, starting their lap there for the first time. So let's see what kind of lap times we're looking at. Of course, the guy's running a 1:52. Big Tam making his way through the start-finish straight there and into Tamburello for the first time. So of course the guy's running around a 1:52, 1:53 around this Imola circuit, and of course, Banzlowski just running wide there a little bit, but I don't think it seems to have slowed him down very much. And we're just going to skip back to have a quick look at Banzlowski there. So just moving further down the field, and one of our winners from last weekend, Sausage Miyagi, of course, wanting to be known as Sausage for this weekend. So Sausage was running in second place for our feature race last weekend, and really sadly ran out of fuel on the last lap, which dropped him back down the field. Managed to fight his way back and win the sprint race last weekend. So managed to salvage some points. Sausage, of course, currently our championship leader, but only by 1 point from Banzlowski. So the win and the second place for Banzlowski last weekend, managing to pull him back to a pull him back into the close fight that is the championship at the moment. So Big Tam just making his way around the Rivata 2, making his way down to the start-finish straight. So we should see some initial times from the guys right now as they make their way towards the start-finish straight. And of course Banzlowski straight in with a 1:52.7. Let's see how Big Tam can respond. He does seem to have dropped back, and apparently he has invalidated his lap time for that particular lap and seems to be running straight on to make a second attempt as we follow Z4 as he makes his way around the Tamburello chicane. We're currently running on a 1:54.8, running a little bit further back. So
looks like he's not the slowest. Shorzy seems to be struggling, 4 seconds behind in Beamer. Probably maybe made a couple mistakes down the track or something. But Mascong seems to be getting even worse. It's 16 seconds behind.
So it would seem that Mascong has made a bit of a mistake there. That looks to me as though he managed to have a spin somewhere out on track. Of course, a 2:08 is quite a slow lap time, and I'm sure we'll see him improve. So Shorzy, of course, running the BMW for this evening, and these cars are notorious for being a little bit tail happy. Of course, we saw that last time out at the Circuit of the Americas. So coming in with a 1:54.1 redshift, making his way through into provisional second place there. Of course, we've only got 8 minutes left of this qualifying session. So we're just going to follow Rubbernecker a little bit as he makes his way around the back of the course. Does seem to be running a little bit slowly, so is potentially on an outlap there for here. So we make our way across to Dizzy as he makes his way around to finish his outlap as well, making his way up the rear part of the course and making his way into that chicane. Of course, Dizzy not having a very good weekend last weekend, and hoping to make up for it here this weekend. So running back to the start as we look at Big Tam, who's currently in the garage but has put in a 1:53.8, so over a second off the pace at this point, maybe making some very quick setup changes to sort the car out and maybe go out for another run. Just 7.5 minutes left of this just 7.5 minutes left of this qualifying session. So we make our way back out to the front of the field as Banzlowski makes his way around the back of the course, and currently looks like he's on another flyer of a lap. Of course, we've got an errant car there at the back.
Looks like someone's disconnected.
Yeah, it looks like Banzlowski was taking some action to avoid the car that was stopped on track there. of course, this being sim racing, internet issues are a thing with these events. So we do our best to try and negate them, but sometimes these things happen. So Banzlowski making his way up to the Ravatsas now, and potentially going straight through to start another lap. So just following Mascong down, of course. Mascong, our one of our oldest competitors in CRS, and of course running in Tier 1 touring cars, and making his way down to the bottom of the course right now. It looks to me as though he's on a flying lap, making his way round to oh no, he's warming his tyres up, so that's potentially an out lap there for Mascon, of course, sitting on a 208 right now. So definitely a lot of room for improvement there.
Yeah, I think the Beamers are going to have a little bit of trouble with their tyres, because the front-wheel drive cars, their front tyres are going to be heating up so much quicker, because they're the driving wheels and the turning wheels, but the Beamers might have trouble with understeer, because the front tyres might be a little bit colder than they might be.
Yeah, of course, tyre temperature is a massive thing with these cars. The only thing to note with that is, of course, that the front wheel drives will wear they're going to, of course, make their wear their tyres out quicker. So no improvement at the front of the field at the moment. Banzlowski is still sitting on a 152.7 with Big Tam sitting on a 153.8. Of course, we're following Big Tam around the circuit at the moment as he makes his way across to start his qualifying lap for this run. So only about 4.5 minutes left of this qualifying session. So
yeah, it's going to be a shoot for first place. Everyone's going to be striving for the quickest time. And if you remember back to practice, we were having the top 3 within a second of each other. Don't know if we'll be seeing that today at the moment, but definitely be a lot more interesting to have the top field a lot more closer, fighting for first the whole time.
So it does look like Banzlowski's jumped into the pits there to refuel and put some fresh tyres on, as we make our way round with Calm Big Tam. Of course, Calm Big Tam running about a second behind at the moment.
Yep, can confirm he's chucked a fresh set of slicks on, and he's probably going to go out for one last big push.
Thank you, Jimmy. Is he making his way out of the pits at the moment? No, Banzlowski biding his time at the moment. So we'll follow back on with Big Tam. Let's see if he can make a bit of an improvement this time round with his qualifying lap. Whoa, very sideways there, Big Tam. Some excellent car control. Big Tam, of course, was one of the guys last weekend showing off some excellent car control, getting the car very sideways, and managing to use that front wheel drive of that Renault to pull his way out of the slide. So making his way up now, making his way up to the Ravatsas now, as he, of course, takes the 2 left-handers to make his way round to the start-finish straight again. So let's just follow along and see how he gets on and whether he is able to improve.
Yeah, it looks like for most of these drivers it's going to be a one-lap wonder, seeing if they can just push the car that 1 lap to get a time up.
So there we go. No improvement for Big Tam at the moment. Hopefully, maybe he'll go for another run straight off the back of that one to see if he can improve. So Banzlowski now back out on track, back out on his out lap to to make his way around, potentially trying to improve on that 152.7 at the moment. So following on with Redshift as he makes his way around the two Ravazzas onto the start-finish straight. So Redshift currently sitting on a 154.1. We've seen quicker pace out of Redshift in the practice sessions, so I'm sure there is more time in that car at the moment. So let's see how we get on. No improvement there for Redshift this time round. However,
Oh, actually, he jumps up into second place, 0.615 seconds away from first place. Definitely pushing his car to the limits.
Just waiting for the timing screen to update there. Of course, yeah, he is running a 153.3. So, of course, as Gunnar said, 0.6 away from Banzlowski. He does seem to have gone on to a second flying lap as well, with of course only a minute left of the qualifying session now. So of course that run does demote Carl Big Tam down to third place on the grid at the moment.
Looks like JC's suffering with 26.7 seconds behind first place. Looks like he's going to really have to push the car in this final lap for quali, or he might be starting from the back.
So yeah, Jacob there sitting way off the back of the field, as well as Rubbernecker, who doesn't seem to have managed to get a lap in at the moment. So of course those two, the hot favourites for being on the back of the grid at the moment, as Redshift jumps into the pits and we follow on with Banzlowski.
Rubbernecker disconnected, and I'm not sure that he's actually been able to come in yet.
Okay, so we are again looking at some internet issues there for Rubbernecker at the moment. Hopefully we can get him back into the game party before we start the race. I mean, of course, even if he's starting from the back, he still has a chance to fight his way through to the front. So of course we're now finished with our qualifying session. That is the end of the qualifying session. So the guys will just finish their final flying laps. So Fly to Star's making his way round onto the final straight. Currently sitting on a 155.1, so 2.4 seconds away at the moment. Let's see if he can make his way up the field slightly. So only up to a 155.0. So he managed to improve a little bit, but didn't manage to make any improvement on his on his position at the moment. So Mascon jumping into the pits at the moment. So we're following on with a Bag Z4 at the moment on a 154.2. Of course, driving the Renault at the moment as he makes his way around the Ravazzas.
Yeah, the Renault seems to be the most popular of these three touring cars. Obviously, you've got the Renault, the BMW, and then you have the Mercedes, which no one is using. Doesn't seem to be too popular.
So there we go. That's another finish lap for that Baghdad Fort, currently sitting in 5th place with a 154.2. So we have GRG Jacob on an out lap at the moment, and I believe that is Rubbernecker coming round, maybe to complete a flying lap. Of course, Rubbernecker having some internet issues during this qualifying session, so not able to take part very much. And that is the qualifying session over, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll just go to the results. So Banzlowski there on a 152.3, an absolutely scorching lap. Managed to improve from a 152.7 to a 152.3, with Redshift 80 just under a second behind him there, with Big Tam, Shorty, that Bag Z4, Sausage, Mascon, Fly to the Stars, Dizzy, Doherty James, and of course we have Jacob and Rubbernecker rounding out the field.
And it looks like the mid-pack seem to be extremely close together, staying probably within a second of each other, and it's the same with the top 3 or 4. They're all going to be very close.
Yeah, there seems to be a great midfield battle going on there. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. The weather forecast, of course, for this race is heavy rain for the start of the race, clearing through to maybe some light cloud and some sunshine for the remainder of this race. Of course, the feature race this evening is 26 laps. 26 laps long. Of course, the guys now scrambling to try and sort their setups out, and of course change tire. The team's changing tires very, very quickly. So of course this is a 26 lap feature race with a pit window from lap 8. So of course the guys can change tires after lap 8, and with of course we run safety cars in CRS. So if there is a incident involving 2 or more drivers, a safety car will be called to bunch the field back up again, just to keep the racing a little bit more exciting for you guys.
Yeah, we'll see which
And
car
guys,
suffers
this
more,
is
'cause
the Imola, so it will happen.
yeah, very, very likely chance, and we'll see which car suffers out more, because the runners might have an advantage as getting their front tires keeping warm as the driving wheels, but the Beamer might have a little bit of problems with the cold fronts.
Yeah, so of course the as you rightly say, Gunnar, the Renaults being able to keep their front tyres warm, and we'll see how the BMWs get on in the at the start of this race, being able to keep some heat in their tyres. So we make our way down to the first corner at the moment. So Banzlowski currently in first place, with Shawzy in second, Big Tam making his way down. So we just follow Banzlowski through the first corner. And,
yeah, it looks like
following
Shawzy
back-
got a shoot up from
So you-
5th. Got a great start with those rear wheels.
So yeah, there we go. That's Shawzy making his way up into second place, with Big Tam and Redshift 80, with Bag Z4 making a great deal of improvement from last week. Of course, Bag Z4 had a bit of a torrid race last week, but let's see how he manages to make his way round in the rain. Of course, Redshift and Z4 battling it out for 4th and 5th place, with Sausage Miyagi there in 5th place as well. So Sausage Miyagi and Redshift making their way down and battling it out for 4th and 5th place at the moment. Of course, for the first couple of laps, the field's going to be nicely bunched up, and hopefully we'll see some incidents as Redshift going off there, running wide, with Banzlowski in the lead at the moment, leading from Big Tam. So it does seem that the Renaults are able to just kind of work together and pull away a little bit. With
Looks like Miyagi's going to go
Miyagi
for the pass
now.
on Shawzy.
So yeah, Sausage Miyagi making his way down the inside of Shawzy there. Of course, this is a bit of a reprise from their battle from the sprint race of last week, with a little bit of contact there. Contact there between Shawzy and Miyagi. So of course Miyagi now making his way, and all the guys take to the gravel to try and make their way around. So we just make our way back to the back of the field, and Dizzy having a little incident there at the Rivazzas, making his way around the final corner, battling it out of course for the final place with Rubbernecker there. So making our way back to the front of the field, with Banzlowski and Carl who have switched places at some point. So Big Tam able to get the move done at some point off camera there.
Yeah, Shawzy seems like he suffered the worst of that, as he went down from 3rd all the way down to 10th.
Yeah, unfortunately in these conditions sometimes that's unavoidable, and oh, there we go, we've got somebody else off in the background there. That looks to be Mascong running really wide, now defending from Doherty James. So Mascong fighting as hard as he can. Of course, a little bit of a snake of cars building up behind him at the moment. Let's see if he can hold his way back. Of course, when a snake of cars forms, it makes things nice and interesting for the guys in the middle, drifting the car through that corner there, Mascong. And as you have to try and decide whether you're going to attack or defend through the corners.
And guys, I'll be very, very interested to see who makes the gamble first And
There we
who
go, ladies and
comes
gentlemen.
into
Just
the
sorry
pit
to
lane?
cut across you there, Jimmy. We have a safety car called at the back of the field. I believe that is Rubbernecker.
Oh,
I believe that's Rubbernecker out of the
Rubbernecker.
race there.
Yeah.
Let's follow along to.
Looks like Dizzy and Rubbernecker might have had a little bit of contact. Rubbernecker probably
Might have
getting
had
the
a bit
worst
of a
of
coming
it.
together there.
Yeah.
So we seem to be back green racing again there.
It isn't the end for Shawsey and Dizzy.
So Big Tam there, slowing right down just to form the field up behind him. So we are under safety car conditions here, guys. Hopefully maybe the safety car conditions will allow us to clear a little bit of the rain that's running on the track. Of course, if you have all the cars running together, the tyres collectively will try and clear some of the water off the track. The standing water is, it seems that that's caught a couple of people out in the start of this race so far.
Mm.
Yes, but that will bring tyre temperatures down just a little bit, and in wet conditions, tyre temperature and being able to channel that water out through heat and the studs in the tyres is everything.
Yeah, it's a very good point there. Do you does it seem? It seems to me at the moment that the Renaults are doing a great job of keeping their tyre temperature in the front of those cars. So we're just waiting for the last of the field to make their way onto the back of the pack at the moment, and then of course we'll be going racing again. So it does seem that the BMWs at the moment having to do an awful lot more of their warming of their tyres. So that does feed into what you guys were saying about the Renaults being able to keep more temperature in the tyres at the moment.
Yeah, probably isn't helping the safety car because they're not going as fast. Their tyres aren't putting as much force into the road, so their tyres are cooling down pretty quickly.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. So we are about to go green again. So Big Tam just bunching the field up and just picking his moment to go green again.
And it looks like we're racing again.
There we go, guys. So yeah, so picking his moment straight out of that corner, making his way out of the corner to just try and pull a little bit of a gap on Banzlowski there. Of course, Banzlowski and Sausage absolutely dominant last weekend at Circuit of the Americas. It does seem that Banzlowski is consistently quick, but just not able to stay with Big Tam at the moment. Maybe that will improve as the weather conditions improve. So we are only on lap 4 of 26 at the moment. This is of course our feature race for this evening. So just jumping back to further down the field, we'll have a quick look and see what's going on a bit further back with, I believe that is bag Z4. So Z4 currently running in third with a little bit of a gap over Sausage there. So let's see if Sausage can, he does look like he's having a look for a move there to try and make his way up into third place. Of course, Sausage is our current championship leader. However, he probably won't be after this because Banzlowski is of course only 1 point behind in the championship at the moment after our feature and sprint race from last week.
Yeah, he's probably going to be scrambling to get up and battle with him because this will be the make or break of his championship.
Yeah, this could be very well be the deciding factor. And
Looks like
Z4 running
Z4 goes
really
wide,
wide
catching
there.
the grass
So Z4
and into the gravel trap.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes you don't even have to make a move. Sometimes you can just force a mistake from the guy in front, and that was that. So we're just going to follow along with Sausage Miyagi now, with Mascon just sitting on the back bumper of Sausage Miyagi's car. Of course, the guys all giving each other just a little bit more space at the moment, just because of these wet conditions, and of course, just how they're affecting the cars. It does seem that the the Renaults in particular are particularly tail happy. So the field now
Yeah,
starting to.
I will just say at this point, when this rain is scheduled to clear, and once it does, I'll be very interested to see who takes the gamble and who comes in first for a dry setup. If you take the gamble too early and you run in wet conditions, what ends up happening is that you'll have to come back in, and that just ruins your race. So it's a very fine balancing act, and I'll be very interested to see who makes the risk.
Yeah, so of course, the guys having the chance to change to a wet setup, and it does seem that Big Tam has taken a wet setup for the start of this race, which has obviously seen him be able to pull a little bit of a gap at the start of the field. So it'll be interesting to see if he can make his way through. So, and a little bit of an incident there between Dizzy and Jacob at the back of the field. So that is another safety car being called. And the field will bunch up. So going back to you, Gunnar, you were going to say something a little while ago, and I cut across
the
you
Beamers.
just to.
The Beamers seem to be really struggling, or some of them seem to be really struggling. And what else I was going to say is the Renaults are probably going to be slightly more tail happy, as their rear tyres aren't really doing much. They're just being dragged along by the fronts, while the Beamers have more of an even distribution of forces on the tyres. Obviously, the front's turning, and the rear is pushing.
Okay, there we go. Just hearing from the pits, ladies and gentlemen, that Dizzy has rear suspension damage. So Dizzy will, of course, have to pit to repair the damage, and losing a rear bumper there as we as he makes his way around. So just following on as he
And that's a sorry
just
sight for
making
someone
way-
who loves cars.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot
just
of
a
the-
bashed up Beamer.
So Dizzy jumping in the pits there, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, having to make his way into the pits to straighten out his car, as he's of course had a little bit of a run-in with Jacob there at the rear of the field. So Big Tam making his way to the front, and I believe we are green again there, ladies and gentlemen. So making our way down to the first corner. This is going to be an interesting run down to the first corner. Let's see how this run pans out.
Looks like a Big Tam got a big run on the restart. Even into the first few corners, already gained about a second and a half on banzlowski in second place.
So yeah, it does seem that Tam must be running a wet setup for this race. The amount he's able to kind of run away from the front of the field. But just following along with the rest of the guys at the moment, as there's only about 8/10 between Sausage and Banzlowski, of course, our two championship contenders for this evening. But don't forget that I believe that Big Tam is still in the mix for the championship at the moment. I'm just going to go through and just check the touring car points, because I believe Big Tam is in the mix as well.
Yeah, if he gets his first place and he's in the mix, it's probably going to be a three-way fight into the next few races.
So yes, ladies and gentlemen, so Doherty, James and Big Tam are sitting in third and fourth place in the championship. So if Big Tam can pull out this win, that's going to be really big for his championship home. So Mascon just manages to miss the chicane completely there, and will probably have to hand that place back to that bag Z4 behind him. And the two guys fighting it out into the final corner. Mascon.
will point out that Dizzy is very, very animated on his radio. He's reporting to the team he is not happy with the balance of that car, and as be with rear suspension damage, but he is very, very animated in his communications to the team.
Yeah, now running almost a minute behind the rest of the pack. Really having a hard hit on him this race.
So yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, of course, there is only so much that the team to make their way. Is the only so much that the team can do to straighten out the car. So going to the back of the field. So Dizzy making his way around, that car looking very much worse for wear at this point. So of course, very much looking worse, missing quite a lot of panels there, and of course full damage is on at this point. So of course that's going to be affecting his the way that car drives massively.
Yeah, he's going to be
lane's
running
on
absolutely
this
no
lane, guys.
downforce.
So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I've just heard from the pits that the pit lane is now open, so the guys can come in. So this is where the strategy comes into its own as the guys start to make their pit stops for this feature race.
I would expect
Yeah,
a
they're
lot
gonna
of
be
people
pushing
to stay out.
Yeah, most definitely, Jimmy. I'm gonna expect that until this rain goes away, the guys are not going to jump to the pits. All the guys will try and tie the switch from wet to dries into their strategy for this race. So it does show you, ladies and gentlemen, that the guys are currently running 203s, 204s at the front of the field. So they're running about. So of course the rain is worth about 10 seconds around this track. So it does seem that the rain is starting to lighten slightly. So maybe we will see some pit stops in the next sort of 4 or 5 laps as the track starts to dry. So just following along with Sausage, and I believe that is that bag Z4 there in the Renault as he defends from Mascong into the chicane. Mascong not quite close enough to make a move this time around. So just running down to the back of the field there, Redshift 80 running down in 9th place at the moment. Does seem to have a bit of damage on his car, so involved in an incident earlier in the race. And that seemingly is kind of moved him right down to the back of the field. So just following Banzlowski there, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way around, and of course Banzlowski and Sausage Miyagi battling it out for the championship. So once this race is done, and of course I believe that was Sausage Miyagi getting very sideways there into the corner. So just moving back to the front of the field there, Big Tam about a 2-second lead at the moment, with Big Tam there off wide as he makes his way around the final corner. Big Tam getting it very wrong into the braking zone there, which gives Banzlowski a bit of a chance to close up. He's dropped the gap from 2 seconds down to just over a second. So
Big Tam lost corner a little bit quicker than Banzlowski, extending the time by 2/10 throughout that straight.
So Big Tam leading from Banzlowski at the moment, with Sausage running in 3rd place. So of course this has big implications for the championship, as this means that Banzlowski will of course overtake Sausage in the championship, although be it very maybe very briefly for the sprint race this evening.
Yeah. I mean, you never know. So the strategy might come into play, and Sausage might be able to pull off a quicker pit stop and manage to gain those 6 seconds back. And,
So yes, of course,
we're
ladies.
in the fight for the championship.
So
Looks
yes,
like
of course, ladies and
Shawsey losing the rear end through that corner.
yes, it seems like Shawsey is trying his absolute hardest to make his way onto the back of Redshift at the moment. So we're just going to follow this battle along and just see what's going to develop. As of course the rain seems to be starting to lighten and the track seems to dry. So it does seem that Shawsey is managing to gain a little bit as Redshift runs a little bit wide there, just dipping 2 wheels over the rumble strip.
Shawsey managed. Oh, Redshift seems to lose the rear end through that corner there, giving Shawsey a run.
So just running back to the front of the field now as we watch Bag Z4 and Mascong as they make their way down the start finish straight. Mascong, of course, sitting right in the slipstream there of that Bag Z4 as he Mascong just looks to the inside and doesn't quite seem to have the outright pace to make a move, but I might be proven wrong here. Yes, Mascong running straight on at the chicane there. So of course we'll probably have to give, the Vaz very much had to give that place back to Bag Z4 there. So Sausage Miyagi seems to have dropped off the back of Banzlowski a little bit there. So Banzlowski able to pull the gap to Sausage Miyagi out to about 4.5, 4.6 seconds at the moment. Of course Big Tam storming away at the front of the field with just under a 6-second lead at the moment. So
yeah,
moving
like
back to the
drivers.
and Shawsey in the wall. Shawsey in the wall. Not entirely sure what happened there, whether he just lost the rear of the car as he came around that corner and able to recover the car and potentially make his way back to the pits or carry on with his race. But that is at the moment the end of that. So that is of course the end of that battle at the moment. So we move back to the front of the field as Doherty James seems to have dropped off the back of Bag Z4 with Mascong running really far back now, has managed to lose a place to Doherty James in that exchange. I believe he lost that place on the run straight after he went straight on at the chicane, and obviously lost all of the momentum on the next run down to the bottom corner of the track. So back on board with Sausage there as he makes his way across the start-finish line. So whoa, Big Tam able to pull 3 seconds out of Banzlowski on that last lap. So running at a 2 minutes dead, whereas Banzlowski can only manage a 2 minutes and 3 seconds. So extending the gap out to about 7.5, 8 seconds now. So really running away and forming a commanding lead there. This will set him up really nicely for the pit stops and the switch from wet to dry running.
Yeah, speaking about pit stops, the track seems to be drying up and the weather seems to be getting slightly nicer.
I wouldn't count on people coming in just yet, but you are correct. It is drying up.
Oh, Big Tam
running
really wide there. Just caught out by a stray puddle there on the track.
Looks like he's catching up to some back markers.
So just following on with Banzlowski now that gap a 9-second lead at the moment. So Big Tam consistently pulling away at the moment. Of course, we are out of our safety car window now, so the field will start to spread out, and we'll start to see some interaction with the back markers as Big Tam makes his way onto the back of Dizzy. Of course, Dizzy having that big incident at the start of the race, which has almost ruined his race at this point, because he was complaining that the car was completely undrivable after the incident and had to pit for repairs, which put him really far back.
And suffering with absolutely zero downforce, missing the rear wing and the front splitter. He's
So
going
there
to be...
we go. Oh, and Dizzy just getting loose out of that corner there. There's nothing more scary when you're leading a race than coming up on the guy at the back of the field and they get loose in front of you.
Yeah. And he's still getting loose, suffering with that no downforce and the rain. The tyres are going to be really struggling to stick to the track. Speaking of it, looks like he ran a little bit wide.
So just moving back to the mid pack of the field now, as that Beg said for able to pull a bit more of a gap from Doe to James, just running about 2 seconds ahead of him at the moment, with Mascong just running a little bit wide at the rear of shot there, as we follow Mascong around for a little bit. He does seem to be struggling for grip at the moment. Those wets have done 12 laps at this point, so they must be really screaming out for a change.
Yeah, the rain seems to have virtually almost stopped. It's going to be a while until the racing line starts to clear up, as you can still see the puddles flying up behind the cars.
So of course this feature race isn't the only race for this evening. After this race we have the sprint race, which is of course a short race of only 12 laps with the safety cars until lap 4. And of course the grid for the sprint race will be the top 6 of the feature race will occupy the final 6 grid slots of the sprint race. So with
it looks
a
like
lobby
Dizzy's
of 12,
jumping into the pits.
there we go. Let's follow along.
Can
as
confirm
he
he's coming into the pits.
Okay,
Looks like he
ladies and
really
gentlemen,
needs
so-
it as well, his crumpled up car.
So Dizzy, of course, taking the decision to jump onto dry tyres, taking a bit of a risk, but at this point he's got nothing to lose. He is, of course...
That's still a risk at this stage.
Yeah.
I
I don't think he was going to tyres.
There isn't, of course,
If you
a
look back
dry
at the
line, but there is
pits.
a dry line forming at this point. So it does seem that he's pitted for more repairs there, as the
Yeah.
So as we follow along with Shorzy, who's currently in 9th place at the moment, only able to manage a 2:18 on that last lap. So there seems to have been a little bit of a spin or some kind of incident on that last lap. So calm Big Tam. So we've got our first sub 2 minute lap for this race, with Calm Big Tam with a 1:59.3, making his way round down to the 2 Rivazzas at the top of the course there. Slowly making his way onto the back of the next back marker, which I believe is Jacob, who we are following now.
And it looks like Shorzy has just jumped into the pits.
Yeah, it does indeed look like
Probably
Shorzy
a
has
good
also
call.
taken the
I think a
bold
lot of
move
these
at
guys
this
are
point.
going to face a situation where they have no choice. Some of them may have put in low amounts of fuel, anticipating that it would dry up quicker than it has. So some of them may have to come into the pits for dries, purely because they've run out of fuel.
Yeah, and Shorzy might have had a little bit of a front left damage, because as it was running around, looks like his bonnet was popped a little bit, and maybe had a little bit of suspension damage.
Yeah, so there we go, guys. The first of the field. The guys running a little bit further back, of course, with taking a risk and moving on to dry tyres at this point. So we are starting to see a little bit of a dry line forming at this point. Of course, the rain completely stopped now, so it's just a matter of time until the track dries up. So Shorzy
Looks like
able
Shorzy's
to-
I was
taking
talking to
time.
I was talking to the teams earlier on, and they said about 155 is the crossover point where you should start getting onto dries. So that's what the teams have said. It'll be interesting to see whether drivers listen. I don't know any racing drivers ever listen to their team.
Oh, there we go, and Shorzy running really
Shorzy.
wide. So the running wide on, of course, very cold tyres at this point, and maybe still able to having to crawl around a little bit. Wow, there's some really wet patches. You can still see the spray coming off the car. So if he's running on slicks, he's going to have a torrid time, especially in that BMW, which is tail happy at the best of times. So as we just follow along with Sausage Miyagi as he makes his way down to the two Rabatzas, and nobody from the front of the field making their way into the pits at this point. So of course Big Tam able to run at a 157.7 at this point. So very close to that crossover time you were talking about, Jimmy. We're very much getting there at this point, and so of course Sausage Miyagi making his way down to start another lap. Let's look as Doherty James and Mascong make their way through. Nobody jumping for the pits at this point with Fly to Stars, and then we have a big old gap as Redshift making his way around the course, and doesn't seem to have pitted at this point as well. So
Yeah,
making
as
our
you
way
can
back
see,
to
the track is starting to Dizzy.
very close to contact there
Running front of-
for Dizzy and Big Tam. So of course Dizzy running a couple of laps behind at the moment, just by virtue of having to pit a couple of times. So pitting once for damage, and then making his way onto the dry tyres at this point. A bit of a risk at this point, but there very much does seem to, just looking at the track from where I'm sat, it does seem that there's a dry line, but there's definite puddles still on the track. So you really want to avoid that standing water with the slicks, as Big Tam drifts it out of the last corner and makes his way down to the start-finish straight there again. So we make our way to the 3rd, 4th and 5th place positions, with Sausage, Doherty and Mascong all fighting it out. Of course Sausage and Doherty closing up together, so maybe we'll see a little bit of a battle. Of course neither of these guys have pitted at this point, so it very much depends on how the pit strategy plays out for these two guys. Of course those wet tyres really not designed. So there we go, that's Sausage just making a little bit of a mistake there, and there we go. So Sausage jumping into the pits and presumably coming in for dry tyres at this point, and making the jump to see if this benefits him in the long run of the race.
Yeah, 3 people in the pits now. Sausage Miyagi, Mascong and Jacob all in the pits.
However, we do have a massive gap for Big Tam at the front of the field, running with a 35-second lead at this point. I believe Banzlowski hasn't been in the pits yet either, so Banzlowski just not able to live with the pace of Big Tam on the drying track. However, it does seem that the track is now pretty much dry, so now would be the time to make their way onto slicks.
Yeah, Jacob's still looking like he's got a little bit of front damage there.
Yeah, that's by virtue of the incidents from earlier in the race. Of course, we are now out of the safety car window, so the field has bunched up massively at this point. So riding back.
There's only 9 laps to go.
I'll tell you what, boys, the guys at the BMW factory aren't going to be too happy with this race, are they?
Nah.
Yeah, it does seem that the Renault is the very much the dominant car at this point in this race, particularly, especially with the wet conditions. It does seem that the Renault has dealt with them a little bit better.
Yeah. Looks like Big Time running up on 2 of the back markers. Both fighting, probably. Looks like Banzlowski is jumping in pits.
So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Banzlowski in the pits with a complete tyre change, and making his way back out of the pits now. And of course that was Mascong and Sausage being overtaken and being lapped by Big Tam at this point.
And it looks like Flight of Stars is also jumping in the pits.
Well, I believe that would mean that everyone's pitted.
We're still waiting for, I believe Big Tam hasn't pitted yet, so our race leader is actually the last person to pit. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we're just hearing that some of the drivers have not been able to change their tyres during the pit stops. Of course, that could be crucial at this point during the races. Of course, they all started on wet tyres, as it was absolutely heaving it down at the start of the race, and so it's going to be very interesting for the last 8 laps to see how they manage those wet tyres, if they are still on wet tyres.
Yeah. Pitting for new tyres could be extremely damaging to the race. They'll probably be put... well, if Calm doesn't manage to change his tyres, he's probably going to be knocked down to the mid-pack. But it looks like the top 2 still haven't pitted.
So yeah, we're currently running around.
I can tell you that driving with worn tyres in these cars, especially the BMW, is not fun. Especially in drying conditions, let alone whatever these are. Like this, it's not a fun time, I can assure you.
So there we go, Doherty James into the pits, making his way into the pit lane to change his tyres. So the only person out on track at the moment, Big Tam, able to make his wet tyres last, of course. And of course there is a mandatory pit stop in this race, so he will have to come in at some point, but he does now have an absolutely commanding lead. And I believe the race is currently for second place. There's Banzlowski now pitting again. So obviously Banzlowski not able to change his tyres in the last stop, and feels that it would be beneficial for his race to come in and take that fresh rubber and just take the hit on the time spent in the pit stops, and that drops Banzlowski down 4th and potentially even further down. As
Miyagi
now coming around,
have a chance.
And that is huge for the championship, ladies and gentlemen, as Sausage and Banzlowski now fighting it out for the championship. Of course, there's only 1 point between them at this point in time. Of course, Banzlowski incredibly unlucky to have to pit twice.
Looks like just as we panned over to Banzlowski, someone spun right in front of Miyagi. Looks as if it was Shorzy was in the rear end.
So yeah, Shorzy of course in the mix there, but running around in 9th place at this point, being lapped by I believe that's Doherty James there in 4th place, and Redshift there sitting on the back bumper of Doherty at this point.
Yeah, it looks like Banzlowski was knocked down all the way back to 7th.
So now we're going to see whether the benefit of taking fresh rubber at this point is going to start playing out, and whether he's got the it's going to be whether he's got the pace to catch back up to some of the field. He's only about 20 seconds behind Mascong at this point, with about 8 laps to go. So he's really got to go some to make his way up to the next person in the field.
Yeah, I think we're still waiting for Big Tam to hop into the pits for his new tyres.
Yeah, I've got a feeling that Big Tam is going to leave this as late as possible, try and build as much of a gap as possible, and then come in as, like I say, as late as possible to change his tyres and try and dive back out at the front of the field. Especially if he's managed to keep those wet tyres alive, especially in these dry conditions as well.
But if he leaves it for too long, that gap is going to really start to close up on him.
So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Big Tam only able to manage a 1:59.3. Has been running in the 56s and 57s in this race. So it does seem that his pace is now starting to drop off. We'll see how he does as he manages to.
Looks like someone went wide behind him as well, almost hitting the wall. Looks as if to be a orange beamer maybe.
So there we go. Doherty James currently running in 5th place, and it would appear that Flight of Stars is now on the back of Sausage Miyagi. So these guys battling it out for 2nd and 3rd place at this point. We've got a little bit of a race on our hands.
It's going to be a very good battle between these two. It looks like Miyagi got a run out of that corner, managing to get a 2nd lead.
So yeah, Sausage been able to pull just over a 2nd out on that little run down to the final corners. So let's see how he manages to get out of this final corner and down to the start-finish straight.
Yeah, Big Tam is really pushing this pit stop to as late as he really possibly can, running on lap 21 or 26 and still waiting to pit.
Oh, there we go. Flight of Stars off the track with Redshift closing in behind him. Redshift looking for the move, with Flight of Stars potentially having some dirt on his tyres at this point as he makes his way off the track. So Flight of Stars falling back into the clutches. He was just on the back of Sausage at one point, but and wide again. So really struggling with his tyres at this point. I wonder if Flight of Stars was another of our runners that wasn't able to change his tyres during the pit stop.
Yeah, it looks like he's really struggling with some understeer there.
So it does seem that Redshift is now running a couple of seconds a lap quicker than Sausage Miyagi. So let's see if he can close up onto the back of Sausage during his final 5 or 6 laps. Oh, and he runs wide, just hits some water on the way into that corner and runs wide. He's only about 3.5 seconds behind Sausage now as he tries to get his head down and just close up onto the back of that car.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what Big Tam's strategy is. He's really pushing his pit stop.
As I mentioned earlier, I think he is.
Oh,
there we
and
go.
he's
Big Tam
into
into the pits. Big Tam into the pits. So our leader is now into the pits. This is where the race is going to be decided. In reality, he has a good 1 minute 40 ahead of everybody else. So able to keep his wet tyres alive for a very long time there. And
Let's see how quick his pit
only
is.
has about 5 seconds or so. So the new tyres going
Fronts
on,
are off.
only changing the, I believe only changing the fronts there. No, we are going for a set of rears as well.
No.
And
he doesn't have to repair damage either because he hasn't had any collisions, any scrambles with other drivers.
yeah, he's managed to keep his nose clean all race, basically leading from the front and just kind of walking away from the field. Every time there's been a safety car, he's managed to pull a bit of a gap without much of a challenge. And so the gap down to 56, 55 seconds now with Sausage Miyagi, with Big Tam now making his way back out of the pits, so comfortably back out into the lead. So as I say, I'm able to keep his tyres alive, and that strategy seems to have paid off for him very handsomely there. Oh, and Shawsey just spinning in front of our leader. Oh, and holding the brakes with Big Tam just diving to the grass to avoid him there. So that could have been a very nasty incident there if both drivers weren't aware, especially with Big Tam out on cold tyres as he makes his way round to start the first lap.
Didn't think I was going to get you there.
So now we have a little bit of a race at the back of the field as Dizzy has managed to make his way through to 9th place ahead of Shawsey, of course, who's span in front of the leader there. So just moving to the front of the field again, we have Sausage able to make his way past Mascon with Redshift behind him, so there's a back marker between these two guys now. However, the gap between these two guys, and Mascon running wide there.
Oh.
With that gives Redshift a nice way around Mascon there as he just overshot the chicane and made his way past the back marker. So Redshift does seem to be dropping off the back of Sausage there. I wonder if just the uncertainty of what that back marker was doing has caused Redshift just to slow down a little bit. So just moving to the back of the field again, we've got this little battle developing between Dizzy and Shawsey for the final place on the grid, as Shawsey runs a little bit wide there, and so maybe there's still a bit of a damp patch running into the two Rivazzas, and so Shawsey and Dizzy fighting it out for the final place in the field with the two BMWs. Of course, Dizzy into that massive incident at the start of the race with Rubbernecker, taking Rubbernecker out of the race.
Yeah, it's just a battle of the damaged beamers at the moment.
So Sausage Miyagi able to pull a little bit of a gap on Redshift at the moment, able to pull about 2.5 seconds. So we'll stay with this fight as we finish the race here with only 3 or 4 laps to go.
Shawsey has seemed like he is retired, probably due to the spinning. Maybe had some suspension damage.
Yeah, I mean that's almost certain at this point that the car got to the point where it just it was safer and easier to just pull it into the pits and park it up for the feature race. This does of course mean that he will start at the back for the sprint race, of course. So just to remind you all, the first 6 places in this feature race will occupy the final 6 positions in the sprint race for their grid. That of course does exclude anybody that didn't finish the sprint race. So I believe we have 2 or 3 competitors coming back for the sprint race who will be on the back of the field. It does just help to keep things more interesting and a little bit more exciting here. So just following back with our leader now, who of course has about a 50-second gap, so really has managed to pull a massive lead out on the rest of the field. So Dizzy in the wall there. Dizzy spinning at the final corner, just losing the back end of that BMW and just sliding off into the gravel, and makes his way straight into the pits for the presumably some repairs there. So just looking at the pace in the at the front of the field, it does seem to have kind of evened out now, with Big Tam and Sausage both running around a 156 on this 156 on this now presumably a dry track, so running a little bit slower than their qualifying time. Oh, the track very much not dry at that part of the that part there, running into a big puddle and getting the car very sideways, but just using the power of that Renault to pull it back straight again.
With anyone that's tired.
It looks like we've had another driver who has retired.
See, Dizzy retiring for the race there. So maybe we can have a bit of a chat with Dizzy now, and as we.
No, it's what I was being smart.
So there we are, we're on lap 25 on lap 25, so our penultimate lap, and getting very sideways through that chicane again, using the front wheels of the Renaults to pull themselves out of the slide there.
Yeah, if that was a Beamer, he'd be spinning around non-stop.
Yeah, it's very much a very different driving style there on the for the front wheel drive cars.
Yeah. Looks like Redshift is dropping away from miyagi.
Yeah, it does seem like that threat's gone away a little bit. Of course, he was closing up a couple of laps ago. But he does seem to be dropping off the back now. The gap down up to about 3.6, 3.7 seconds. So just moving to the back of the field now, we're just watching 5th place with Mascong closing in behind him, and about a 3-second gap there between Mascong, but I don't believe he's going to have enough time to close in on the back of the field. So moving back to the front of the field to 2nd place there with Sausage Miyagi, who has consolidated his championship lead now, as Banzlowski, of course, having to take that 2nd pit stop to change his tyres. And there really does seem to be a wet patch in that section of the course, which is catching a few of the drivers out.
Yeah, definitely getting used to the dry track in the other parts, and just thinking they can do the same as if they've been doing it throughout the whole track.
Yeah, I mean that's.
And it looks like Miyagi is going to be securing the 2nd place for this race. And
yeah, as we follow Big Tam on his final lap, of course, a really commanding lead. Waiting, and right until the last moment to take his pit stop. So able to keep his wet tyres alive for a very long time, even on a very dry track. And say even now the track not entirely dry, but mostly dry.
Yeah, I feel like if he left those wets for any longer, he would be suffering. Looks like they have some celebratory light flashes.
just as
Looks like
just
he's,
as long as he
extremely
doesn't
happy.
pull the same stunt as Sausage Miyagi and run out of fuel on the last lap from the feature race last week. Sausage Miyagi, of course, being demoted from second to the mid pack for the feature race last week. So Big Tam round the final corner, powers out of the final corner, and making his way past the pits to take the win for this feature race. So of course this 26 lap feature race isn't the end of the racing for this evening. We have a 12 lap sprint race once the guys have had a little bit of a break. We should take about a 3 or 4 minute break just to catch a little bit of an interview with some of the drivers and see what their thoughts are on this feature race and the implications for the championship. Very much we want to talk to Sausage about how he feels about Banzlowski dropping to the rear of the field for this feature race.
Yeah, I think he's extremely happy about that. Banzlowski probably dropping further behind than a point now.
So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Sausage Miyagi making his way round to take second place, and Banzlowski retiring there at the end of the race. Banzlowski leaving the session. So Redshift 80 taking third.
Seemed like he had a secured 7th.
Doherty
What did it disqualify you?
James taking 4th place there, and
Alright. Alright. Yep.
so there we go. Mascong taking the 5th place with Fly to the Stars, and
You run it up. Very good.
so there we go. Jacob taking the chicane sideways, and that's the end of the race, ladies and gentlemen.
Take a 5-minute break. I'll be back.
Just going to
Yeah, take a 5-minute break.
speak to the
I've been interviewed with Big Sam, Miyagi, and Redshift.
so there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to try and get some interviews with our podium place. With our podium place finishers for that race.
Yep.
There we go. So we're just waiting to hear from our podium finishers for that
Yeah.
race. So
Yeah.
so of course
That's basically getting that you're cutting back. Yeah, you.
Yeah, something's gone wrong there.
Alright, I'll send him another invite.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we're just having some technical issues with the Xbox party at the moment, so I'm just waiting for an invite back into the party so we can just grab some interviews with the 3 top drivers from that feature race. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I should be okay, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm just going to check that the guys can all hear me now. good stuff. So we're just going to check that the drivers have all got their audio included in the broadcast that I'm speaking on at the moment, and then we'll start asking some questions.
Got you.
Yep. Just done it.
Cool. So Redshift, just coming to you first. It seemed that after your pit stop, you were really catching
Put my video. Right, let's start.
Sausage Miyagi.
Unmute. Yeah, I think I heard you there. Yeah, first half of the race was awful. Couldn't handle the rain at all, and then mistaken pit stops it didn't change my tyres. But that turned out to be the best thing, it seemed, because once the track dried, I was able to go back to feeling like normal driving, but I wasn't getting unsettled by the puddles the way the other drivers seemed to, so I think that's why I was catching people. But it was a massive surprise to me, to be honest, because I was struggling through the first half massively.
Yeah, we were hearing of people having issues with tyre changes. Did your wet tyres start to die at the end of the race, or was it just Sausage just pulling away from you at the end of the race there?
No, he wasn't really pulling away. I was making a couple of mistakes and got some slowdowns. I think I had a pace on him, maybe by a tenth or two a lap, not enough to really catch and overtake. But no, my tyres were okay. They were pretty fine by the end of the race still, surprisingly.
That's good to hear, and hopefully you'll have better luck in the sprint race. So just moving on to you, Sausage. Moving on to you, Sausage, and of course Banzlowski having real issues with his tyres. This has massive implications for the championship. Just talk us through your kind of thoughts on that situation at the moment.
Yeah, it was unlucky really, wasn't he? But I benefited from it and filled the gap. I know he's quicker, so I doubt I'm going to keep up with him in a sprint race. But those points that I've just gained over him will definitely come in handy.
Yeah, very much so, and of course the gap is only about 1 point at this point, so that feature race kind of, that gain that you've had there is massive at this point.
Yeah, it gives me a bit of a cushion if I can't keep up with him.
So just moving on to our race winner for our feature race, Big Tam, you took your pit stop really late in that feature race there. Was that a tactic from the off?
Because every other time I pit when it's dry, it seems to rain after it, so I tend to hang after them.
So just praying to the gods of weather there for a little while.
Yep. Just using the puddles to keep my tyres as long as possible. But until lap 22, they just went totally off.
Yeah, we spotted you dive into the pits, and we were kind of discussing between ourselves at what was the point where you were going to be able to keep your tyres alive until?
By then the track was totally dry and I couldn't find any puddles to try and keep the tyres. I went totally yellow and just couldn't start the road.
But well done on you, mate. You had the advantage on pace for the entire of that race. You managed to build up a 50-second lead by the end of the race, which is massive around that place.
How many how many cars? 60 cars in here?
We had about 2 or 3 in that race. But of course the safety car window only runs till lap 8, so we had a decent kind of 20 laps of racing there.
Yep, it was.
All good battles there as well.
Good feeling, guys.
Yeah, congratulations to all the drivers for sort of managing through those conditions that really didn't look much fun at the start of the race there.
I don't imagine it would be much fun in the BMs going through the corners, the runnels.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we're just going to take a a little break very quickly, so I'm going to talk you through some of the other stuff. Of course, we have the 8 hours of Spa and the 24 hours of Le Mans coming up in the next couple of weekends to, of course, be in aid of St John's Ambulance. So the Just Giving link is in our in our Discord. Sorry, not our Discord. Our Twitch bio, and we of course would urge you to give as much as you possibly can. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we're just going to get loaded up into the sprint race lobby now, and just get reset up for our sprint race for this evening. Of course, the sprint race is of course the sprint race is 12 laps around the Imola circuit. Of course, we're showing 13 at the moment, as there will be a 1 lap formation lap just to sort the grid out for the sprint race this evening.
Looks like the forecast is going to be all sunny skies.
Yeah, so the forecast looking good for our sprint race this evening. No more rain in sight for this evening, so we're going to do pretty well for the first kind of few laps at least, where we should have some very, very good racing. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that the top 6 finishers in our feature race will be making their way to the back of the grid, of course excluding anyone that didn't manage to finish the race for the feature race this evening. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to get loaded up and we'll be on the way very, very shortly. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to just finish loading up into the lobby. We're just missing a couple of people, and we will be getting on the way very, very shortly.
Let's hope the Beamers can. Let's hope the BMWs can get a better race today.
How fast do you reckon they send spare parts over, do you reckon?
There's very much going to be some rush jobs on to get the BMWs out in time for the sprint race.
Yeah,
I believe we
especially
do have
some of the crashes.
a full lobby now, so we should be good to go. We should be good to go. So everybody just needs to ready up into the lobby, and then away we go.
Just a second or two, we'll be entering an action race.
So just to talk you through, of course, this is the CRS Touring Car League that we run from Discord and for Xbox. We also run a GT5 newcomers session on a Monday night. We run it at about 8 PM UK time, and it's a really good place for any of the guys that have picked up the game in the last kind of few weeks that just want to have a few races in a kind of no ego, no pressure way, and potentially learn a little bit from some of the guys that are going to run for the next few weeks. So of course there will be a few of our admins in the sessions with you guys to try and help as much as possible and to improve everybody's racing. So one session that I haven't really talked about in this broadcast so far is we run a vintage GP event during the week, which you can find on our Discord page, which of course we run kind of vintage tracks, and we run Lotus and old Formula 1 cars, and it's a bit more of a challenge for the guys that are kind of bored of racing just the kind of normal things. It's a bit more kind of a bit more of an interesting race. So we're just loading up into the lobby now. Of course, the top 5 and the bottom 6. So we only have 11 runners in this field, and of course our race director is going to call out the field as we go through, and the guys will form up into the correct grid. So of course, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to run safety cars again for this sprint race. However, we are only going to run them up till lap 4. So of course, if there are any incidents, we are going to be able to close the field back up again. So I'm now going to hand it over to my friends on the in the commentary box. So DC Gunner is going to take the point on this commentary for you guys, and we'll see once the race begins.
Yeah, so we're just waiting for the drivers to ready up, making the last few adjustments to the setup, just to gain us a few tenths on the other drivers. And yeah, the first lap of this race is a formation lap where everyone's going to form up, and then from there they're going to get grouped up into 2x2 just as they are right now, and the race is going to go ahead, and we don't know what will happen from there. Hopefully some exciting battles between the top and mid pack and the back, and the best drivers will really pull through here, definitely, with keeping their tyres keeping their tyres stopping their tyres from wearing, and keeping them alive.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we're just going to form up into the formation lap now. So we should be hearing the start of the grid.
And this race is essentially just one big expression session for those who may not have done as well in the feature race. So mostly looking at the BMWs, they're probably going to want to take a few positions here to make up for what happened earlier on.
They're really going to want to get up there and hopefully acquire a few points. Definitely after some of the disappointing spins that the Beamer has had. Definitely hoping to see them get up in the back.
So we're just going to run you through, ladies and gentlemen. So at the moment, the grid stands as such. We are Flight of Stars with Banzlowski in second, Jacob in third, with Dizzy in fourth, That Beg Z4 in fifth, Big Tam in sixth, Miyagi in seventh, Shawsy, I believe, has stopped on the track, so Redshift 80 now moving up to 8th, with Doherty James in 9th and Maskong in 10th. So Shawsy having some issues. Shawsy moving to the back of the field at this point.
Yeah, these drivers just trying to keep their tires warm throughout the formation there, just so they can have the perfect start.
So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're just hearing from the race director that Shawsy has been moved to the back of the field for this rolling start.
Yeah, not quite sure what happened there. I don't know if it's a disconnection or he just stopped.
I believe it's a failure to finish the feature race. Of course, the guys that don't finish the feature race don't benefit from the guys moving to the back of the grid from the front of the feature race.
Oh, am I reading that info feed right? Does Shawsy have a drive-through penalty?
Yes,
I'm
I believe he.
anything, but yeah, I think he does.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to allow Shawsy to. So we're going to allow Shawsy to take his drive-through penalty on this pace lap. So this has now become an 11-lap sprint race, with the guys doing one more pace lap just to get rid of any penalties that may have occurred from the grid forming up. So Shawsy there, diving into pits to serve his drive-through. He'll then make his way back into the correct position on the grid, and we'll go racing.
Yeah, it's a shame.
And while we're
It's a
on
shame
this-
to see all the beamers in the back. I would have thought they would have been slightly more competitive, but obviously in the rain they had a lot of trouble, especially with rear traction.
And while we're on this formation lap, I will just point out from a pit stop, or not pit stop, from a setup perspective, that Flight of the Stars and Sausage Miyagi are running drastically larger fuel loads, with Flight of the Stars running 54 litres of fuel and Sausage Miyagi running 70 litres of fuel, compared to everyone else, which is sitting on about 30 litres of fuel. So they're going to have a lot more weight in the car.
Yeah, it does seem that may be something that they overlooked when they were setting the cars up for this sprint race.
Yeah, they can tune suspension to half a degree, but they forget to take out about 30 litres of fuel. That sounds about right.
So there we go. We've got Shawsy moving back through the field now to. Very, very close there to Doherty James. Just crashing on the formation lap is really not a great look for any racing driver. So we're just making our way around to the back of the course now. The grid's forming up, and we are going to be going green this time. The guys just warming their tyres up.
Looks like they're going to start to bunch up in the 2x2 grid, getting ready for the start.
Yeah, so of course there's no overtaking until the start finish line. There's a long old run down to the start finish line on this course. So I think it might play into some people's hands. So they're going to be able to get the draft into the first corner as we round the final corner and make our way down the start finish straight. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, we are now green and racing, and away we go.
And green, green, green. Looks like Schwarzy's trying to stick that outside line. Oh, he's just about running onto the grass. Trying to push past a few of these Renaults. Oh, someone almost getting pushed into the wall.
So big calm Tam almost sprinting out on the grass there, and really having a bit of a and dizzy up the inside of that bag Z4 there. Just a little bit of a tap and run there. I don't know if that bag Z4 is going to pay him back a little bit in the next corner. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, looks like he losed out on two positions there. Don't know if a penalty is going to be awarded or not.
So just moving to the front of the field now with Fly to Stars from banzlowski. Fly to Stars, of course, running kind of at the back of the field for the last race, but holding his own at the moment from Jacob at the front of the field. Oh, and banzlowski through to the lead there.
It looks like banzlowski, yeah.
So of course banzlowski is our second place challenger in the championship at the moment, so this will do his points total an awful lot of good if he can take a win from this race. So let's move to the back of the field with Sausage
Mike in the background.
So Fly to Stars being punted out to the outside there. He's dropped from second place right down to 10th there. So I'm not entirely sure what happened, but
he got spun out. I wasn't able to see if it was of his own doing, but he definitely turned right when he should have turned left, which suggests that there was some contact.
Yeah, of course, this is touring car racing. So and Big Tam spinning out there.
Big Tam spinning out. Ooh.
So Big Tam, our winner from the feature race, really not having a good time of things. They're managed to recover back into sixth place. Into sixth place there. So Miyagi now trying to push up the inside of Mascon with Dizzy.
Dizzy's
spinning
gone
out there in the corner.
Dizzy just on the
now
edge of the track.
So Dizzy now at the back of the field.
Yeah, and boys, he is lighting up the radio, not happy.
Yeah.
So Mascon and Sausage Miyagi battling it out for sixth place. Of course, you've got to imagine that Sausage is going to be really desperate to get past Mascon and try and make his way back to the front of the field.
Definitely looking for a couple of high places to keep those points up, especially from the second place in the feature race. Definitely hoping to keep those points up.
So Big Tam now under attack from Shorzy. Shorzy sending it round the outside at this point and maybe looking for a dive up the inside into this final corner. Just guys allowing each other racing room. Big Tam taking a little bit of the curb there and managing to hold off and slide his way through the final corner. So that battle for 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th seems to be our big battle at this point.
And they're playing nice now, but there was a bit of contact heading down to the last two corners between Shorzy and Big Tam.
Looks like
So
someone's
Maskong
hopped
now
into
up the
pits.
inside. Oh, Maskong running a little bit wide and losing a place there. Now falling back into the clutches of Sausage Miyagi there. So just having a look at the guys in the pits. That bag Z4 has come in for a tyre change. That did look like wet's coming off the car there. So now we're back with Calm Big Tam running in 4th place. He does seem to have pulled away from that battle a little bit in the midfield. Let's move back. And Sausage Miyagi able to make his way around Maskong. So of course Miyagi now setting out in hot pursuit of Shorzy to try and make up another place. Of course, the more places he can make up in this sprint race, the better for his championship campaign this will be. So moving back to the front of the field, Banzlowski running around in 1st place. Of course, Banzlowski, one of our very, very fast runners. He always runs at the front of the field, and currently being chased by Jacob, and slightly pulling out a little bit of a gap there, but not by much. The 2 lap times are very, very similar. There's only about 0.02 of a second in the difference between their last 2 laps.
And guys, several drivers are receiving time penalties for track limits.
Okay, Jamie. So we'll have to wait until the end of the race to see what effect that has on the final standings.
Yeah, those penalties could be the make or break of someone's race.
But it seems everyone in that mid-pack has gotten at least one, so hopefully that evens it out.
So just as we cut to that battle there, we saw Maskong just in the back of shot, just getting really wild around that first chicane, and Big Tam just drifting it through the corners again. So it does seem that he's got some excellent car control and able to make that Renault dance.
That's 2 people who have hopped in the pits now. Z4 and Dirty James.
Dirty James has come in and changed the fronts only.
Okay, he does seem to be sat in the pits at the moment, so it does make me wonder if there's a little bit of damage there as well. So we move back to Maskong at this point, who's just dropped a couple of seconds off the back of that midfield battle at this point. So maybe he can just get it now that he's just really set himself, and just get his head down and try and fight his way back onto the rear of those cars. So back with our leader again, Banzlowski, as he makes his way around the final corner, now pulling out a couple of seconds lead. So starting to build a bit of a gap now. Of course, they are on lap 6 of 13 at the moment. Of course, that is we did have to do a couple of formation laps, so we are now officially an 11-lap sprint race, with Banzlowski putting in a 1:53.5. That is the fastest we've seen in a race at this point. Of course, 1:52s are the qualifying times for these cars, so getting down onto to qualifying pace for some of these guys now.
Yeah, and it's good to see a BMW up in 2nd place after the poor results for the BMWs in the feature race.
Am I detecting a slight hint that you might be a fan of the BMWs, the AC Gunner?
Well, I'm just rooting for them at the moment because a little bit of problem.
Yeah, the BMWs unanimously seem to have a bit of a torrid time of the in the feature race this evening.
All guys, Maskong and Sausage Miyagi. Maskong got just a little bit sideways coming out of the corner number 7, which the name escapes me. But this battle was getting very, very close.
So there we go, guys. Just watching along with Sausage Miyagi now, as Maskog seems to have made his way onto the back of the Sausage Miyagi. So Sausage Miyagi not able to keep up the pace for that we usually see from him. and then we saw from him in the feature race. So it does seem that extra field that he took. Oh, and Mascong missing the corner completely there, just getting it all wrong, and surely that will be a penalty from Project Cars there.
Yes, he has got a time penalty for track limits there, as has Sausage Miyagi for some reason. Yeah,
sometimes the Project Cars kind of track limits, you kind of have to pray to the track limits gods a little bit sometimes. It does seem to make its own mind up sometimes.
That is one religion you can put me down for.
So just moving to the front of the field, we're looking at Redshift 80 and Big Tam there. So Redshift 80 defending third place from Big Tam at this point. So Big Tam, with all the pace in the feature race, just ran away from the rest of the field. So let's see if he's able to make his way through to third place. Of course, Big Tam being the first of our top six on the grid for the sprint race. So Big Tam looking to the inside, not quite able to get a move done this time round. So again, Big Tam looking down the inside and just able to, just seems to be able to turn, just like be able to get the car to rotate a bit more than Redshift at this point. So Big Tam round the outside manages to make the move stick and move on. And maybe, does Jacob have a problem? Jacob seemed to be very slow out of that final out of that corner, and Big Tam immediately onto the back of Jacob there. So Big Tam now falling back into the clutches of Redshift, and Redshift having a little look down the inside there, but not quite close enough this time to make the move stick. So Big Tam making just losing a little bit of time, just battling it out with Redshift at this point. What the guys really need to do is just get their head down between the two of them and make their way onto the back of Jacob and potentially fight for second place. At this point, Banzlowski out in front, of clear 6 or 7 seconds ahead, and seems to be running away with this sprint race this evening.
Someone who is going to enjoy seeing this is Shorzy in 5th place. He's going to love seeing that these three are fighting, because that's going to pull him right back into this battle and up for podium contention.
Oh, just to talk across you there, Jimmy. Big Tam looking up the inside of Jacob at this point and not quite able to make the move stick, but Jacob really defending hard to try and keep the two Renaults behind. The two Renaults seem to be giving him an awful lot to think about in his mirrors at this point.
His mirrors are very, very full of French car.
But it does seem that Shorzy at this point just able to just gain a few tenths. He was on a 154.8 this time. Oh, and so contact there between Jacob and Big Tam. It is all starting to get a little bit physical. It's all getting a bit serious at this point with Jacob and Big Tam. So of course that does.
And Big Tam's lost out. He's lost out in all of that.
Yeah, Big Tam demoted back down to 4th place there. It does seem at this point with Redshift making his way up to 3rd. So let's see if Redshift can have any more success with Jacob. Of course, Jacob defending really hard and doing very well just to keep that car to the inside and just not allow the guys any room to get through at this point.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back now.
There we go, DC Gunner. So we lost DC Gunner for a few seconds there, but he's back in the party now. And I believe DC Gunner, are you watching on Twitch at this point?
Yeah, I'm watching the stream right now.
So hopefully you can chip in with a few things. And at the moment we're watching the GRG and Redshift just running wide there, which allows Big Tam back through and Jacob getting very sideways out of that corner, which then gives Big Tam the run down to this second chicane at Imola. Not quite able to make the move stick. So not quite got the drive out of Tamburello at the start of the track, with Big Tam looking really halfway down the inside of him now. And Big Tam, it does seem that these guys it's gonna be a straight drag race up to the next left-hander. This battle really heating up. And contact there between the two of them, with Big Tam off again, which then promotes Redshift back up to third place. It does seem that Big Tam turned into Jacob a little bit there, which has allowed Redshift to just stick his nose up the inside there.
Yeah, it didn't leave him with a whole lot of room there, did Big Tam.
I mean, it is one of those things where when you're racing these cars, you sometimes, if you've got your field of view set really narrowly, you can't quite see what's going on down the side of you. So he may very well have just not known the guy was there.
Correct. And once you feel a touch, there's not a lot you can do once the cars are interlocked.
So there we go, with Redshift and Big Tam
really
now battling it out. Redshift and Big Tam now battling it out for third place. It does seem that this seems to be the fight to watch at this point, with Jacob moving to try and break the draft of the two Renaults at this point, giving Big Tam the slingshot down the straights. This is of course a very long run from the final corner to the first corner, so there's very much an advantage to sitting in the draft, with Jacob looking with cars either side of him there in a bit of a Renault sandwich at this point, with Big Tam, contact between Redshift and Big Tam.
That's gone poorly for just about everybody involved there.
Yeah, Redshift managing to make his way out. The real winner out of this whole situation is Shorzy, who's managed to make his way from about 8 seconds behind to within a couple of seconds now. So if these guys really keep battling and Shorzy keeps his head down, he may be in the mix by the end of this race.
Definitely be interesting to see two beamers fighting. I don't think we saw any of that in the last race.
Well, mostly for last position.
Mostly for last position, yeah.
Yeah, the BMW is really suffering in the wet for that feature race. So the rain at the start of the race really not doing them many favours. So following on with Big Tam as he tries to make his way around Jacob again. So Jacob, of course, running in second place for most of this race, and managed to just lose out to Redshift, who seems to now have have the pace on Jacob, and has pulled a little bit of a gap, pulled about a 1.5 seconds gap.
I'm wondering if anyone's rocking a little bit of damage from all of that.
At the moment, all the cars look pretty clean from where I'm sat. There doesn't seem to be a great deal. There's a lot of... Oh, and Redshift running wide there, so... Redshift falling back to fourth place and falling into Shorzy's clutches there, and he's actually been... it's going to be a bit of a drag race down to the first corner. With
Beeman's got the legs, I reckon. Oh!
Oh, so Big Tam off there. So
he is not going to be happy with that.
Was that a push, or was that a getting it wrong at the first corner?
Definite contact involved from Jacob.
So there was very much a bit of a push there into that first corner. Of course, this is touring car racing, so that does happen occasionally, and it is very much sometimes it is very much a contact sport. So just following on, just to round up for you, Banzlowski leading by 13 seconds has really run away with this race, with Jacob in second place, with Redshift in third, and Shorzy now the big winner out of that whole situation by making his way up to fourth. So of course Big Tam now must be furious in the car, and very much getting his head down to try and make his way onto the back of this pack again.
Yeah, and his tyre temperatures are running quite hot actually. They're in the yellow. So a fair bit of sliding must have happened and they haven't quite cooled down yet. So he's going to be under difficult conditions, but I don't think that's going to phase him after what happened.
Oh, a little look to the outside there from Shorzy on Redshift. So he's very much thinking about a move. And of course, we now make our way onto the final lap of the race. So time is very much of the essence. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a move into that final corner from one of these three.
Yeah, the pass from Shorzy on past Redshift seems very, very possible. Seems to be able to keep with him throughout the corners and maybe just be able to get the better braking point or a better line through the corner, or just be able to force a mistake.
And Redshift right on the back of Jacob there, so really nose to tail these three cars, which has allowed Tam to close up onto the back. So I'm just going to jump to our leader, who is of course about 14 seconds ahead at this point, and is making his way around on the final lap. So moving back to Jacob up into second place again. There is Shorzy looking down the inside of Redshift. This is all getting a little bit physical, and Big Tam right into the back of Redshift. Luckily no one going off there, just a little bit of a nudge just to get him going out of the corner. So of course this gives Jacob a little bit of breathing room as the three guys, and Big Tam running wide there. So of course Banzlowski back at the front now has a 16-second gap. So this battle going on for second through to fifth place seems to have done him some real favours as he makes his way round the final corner. So round Ravazza 1, round Ravazza 2, powers out of the final corner and now making his way down the start-finish straight to win the sprint race for this evening's Tier 1 Touring Car Championship.
Yeah, it looks like Shorzy's just managing to claim second.
Yeah, with Jacob in third, he would have had no idea what happened. He lost 3 positions, and then all of a sudden the two Renaults slowed down.
So Shorzy now promoted up to second place, the big winner out of that whole situation. He was running 4th and 5th for the entire race and managed to make his way onto the back of that pack and make his way through. So we have. Sorry, we have. I'm just looking at the screen because there seems to be some confusion as to the positions at the moment. It's currently showing me that Shorzy was third in the race, so I wonder if there's some penalties to serve there.
Maybe.
Quite possibly.
But either way, that was some clean driving and very nice patience with Shorzy just waiting for the right time to pass and just ending up claiming that spot.
So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Dizzy making his way onto the straight and having a bit of a torrid race, a torrid couple of races there for Dizzy, with that bag Z4 making his way round the final corner, followed by Doherty James, who started really well and just seemed to fall backwards during that race.
And it looks like that's the end of the race.
So that's the end of the race, and we're just going to go through the order quickly. So Banzlowski winning from GRG Jacob in second place, with Shorzy in third. So Redshift and Big Tam managing to lose out in that big kind of second to fifth battle, with Sausage Miyagi, who is our current points leader, only coming in sixth, with Fly to Stars in seventh, Mascong in eighth, and Dizzy and Doherty James rounding out the managing to make their way through in 10th and 11th, and that bag Z4. So that bag Z4 racking up 7 seconds of penalties in that race. Pretty much the entire field managing to get a penalty in that race.
Yeah, aside from Jacob, he was the only one who didn't get any Any penalties?
And Flight to Stars and Mascong ranking up 12 and 10 seconds worth of penalties respectively. They would have had a torrid time.
So really, the guys really pushing the limits of the track there to try and gain as much time as possible. Of course, sometimes it is just quicker to ignore the project cars kind of slow down messages and just take the penalty, because obviously sometimes it makes you give back more than you've actually gained from the cutting of the course. So we're just going to go through now and check all the guys that were on the podium can hear me.
Yep.
And
Yep.
okay, so Shawsy, we're just going to come to you first. You seem to really win out in that battle between kind of second and fifth, and you came from really far back, about kind of 8 seconds off the back of the pack, and the guys all battling for second place seem to do you plenty of favours there. So if you could just kind of talk us through that kind of whole process from your point of view.
Well, for a few laps I was just pushing to try and catch them, because they were all slowing each other down fighting, like you said. So then once I got there, just trying to gain places where I could, capitalize on their mistakes, and I guess it worked.
Yeah, man, congratulations on that third place. That was a real kind of expert drive to make your way through that battle and make your way up into third place.
Thank you.
So we're just going to go to Jacob now, and I just want to ask you, there was one incident between yourself and Big Tam, just a little bit of contact between the two of you, which seemed to push Big Tam wide. Can you just talk us through it from your point of view?
I mean, he's been bumping me all day, making bold moves, going 3 wide into corners that didn't need to happen. The incident that we had between each other, we have very different brake zones. It seems like the front-wheel drive cars can brake a little later than these BMWs. So I think that had something to play with it. And then he just moved right in front of me, and we were in a corner, and I couldn't slow down anymore, or else I would have locked up and probably made it even worse.
So you guys just kind of had nowhere to go, and it's kind of one of those things that just happens occasionally in racing.
Yeah.
Okay, and now moving on to our winner, Banzlowski. So Banzlowski, you had a bit of a torrid feature race there, but of course pulling out the win in the sprint race. How do you feel that this affects your championship? Of course, you came in only 1 point behind Sausage, who didn't manage to do that well in the sprint race, but of course did quite well in the feature race. How do you feel that your championship campaign's going?
Well, this race was really huge for my soul, because I made like the strategy mistake in the first one. So yeah, it keeps the championship quite tight, because I think Sausage was now 5th or 6th, something like that.